Welcome back. President Trump pushing to end the Department of Education, trying to push the power back to the states after years of the left pushing their radical ideas on children in public schools across this country. Don't forget, the Department of Education was started in 1979 under Jimmy Carter, and since that time, math and reading scores in the United States have been on the decline almost every single year, year over year. For more, let's bring in Pastor John Amachuku. Great to see you in person, my friend.
Yes.
How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you so much for having me on again.
My pleasure, of course. So I know that you are very passionate about this topic. I've got little kids. You've got children.
Sure.
Here is a book right here. I'm not going to say the name of the book just because it's not relevant, but I'm just going to read you a couple of pages here.
Sure.
This is Ruthie, and it shows a picture of a little girl. Ruthie's gender identity is girl. She's a transgender. Here is Xavier. Xavier is a boy. Boy is Xavier's gender identity. Non-binary is a helpful word that can describe a kid who doesn't feel exactly like a boy or a girl. And on the back of the book, it says that you can start reading this to children as young as 2 years old.
That's right.
Pastor John, to me, that's a real big problem.
Exactly. And people would like to call these kind of issues fringe issues, and they're not. According to a study that was done by the American Library Association, the intellectual freedom arm, they reported that in 2021, 1,597 books were flagged. 8 out of 10 of those books were flagged for being problematic because they talked about sexual content or the LGBTQIA+ agenda. I'm traveling the country. I've now been to 18 states. We've been able to amass over 300 million views, flipped several school boards, removed dozens of pornographic books. And I read from this book in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. The board chairman initially gavelled me down, didn't want me to speak, didn't want me to talk about it because they want to hide their sacred cow, right? And so in the board meeting, it became chaos to the point that the cops had to rush in and remove me from the lectern. But the board voted a few days later to remove the book. But the only way for this to take place is that we need a grassroots effort.
So, did you read the book?
I read from the book in the school board meeting.
Were parents present?
Parents were present.
Were they surprised?
Oh, yes, they were greatly alarmed and angry.
Because I think that's part of the problem.
Yes.
I don't think that parents are aware of what's available to their children at the school library in public schools across the country. And look, when you read a book like this, like it's got flashy illustrations, but those are just, this book goes on and puts these children in very complicated situations. Exactly. That 2, 3, 4, 5, 6-year-olds, you can do whatever you want with your children. You can raise them the way that you choose. But my goodness, as a parent, the both of us, I feel pretty strongly that the parent should have a say in how that process goes.
Yes, I agree with that. You know, parental rights are under attack. We've seen that over the past few decades, that there is slowly but surely an insurgency of activist teachers and activist librarians who don't care about children. Some people call it indoctrination, but I call it mental rape. Right. Because it assaults the soul, it stains the brain, and it robs children of their innocence. This isn't good, and this is not education. We should get back to reading, writing, and arithmetic.
Absolutely. So USAID has seen programs cut. Coincidentally, every single program that has been cut so far, unless something was cut today that I'm not aware of, they've all been Democratic programs. USAID, they call it USAID. USAID stands for United States Agency for International Development. Doesn't even say aid in there. Right. But CNN, MSNBC, the other networks love to say aid because aid sounds a lot better than Agency for International Development. Talk about, all of these programs are DEI connected. Correct. Right? Or DEI parallel. Right. Talk about the impact that DEI has had on the black community. Yes. White liberal women. There are numbers to show the impact that it's had. True.
You know, you have men like Reverend Al Sharpton, who gallivants around the country. He's a race baiter. He's a race hustler. He'll tell you that we need DEI. But DEI was created to discriminate against conservatives. Full stop. All right? It was meant to benefit the Democrat Party. There was a study that was done by Black Enterprise that proved that 4% of the people who benefited from DEI were black. The majority of these people who benefit are white liberal women. And so DEI...
How do they benefit?
They benefit because in the hiring process is skewed in their direction. Consider this, people who support DEI have a high disregard for people like Ben Carson and Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas. And so if you believe in traditional marriage, If you are anti-abortion, if you are pro-American values and pro-America, pro the flag, then oftentimes in the hiring process, you miss out. They don't want to hire those kind of people.
It is interesting, by the way, this is anecdotal, but white liberal women, I live in a very blue state, many are very unhappy.
Very much so.
Very confused, very single, don't have a family, don't have children.
Very unattractive.
Sometimes very unattractive as well. And it doesn't have to be that way.
Right.
But I think because they're so confused politically and ideologically, they don't know which way is up.
Right. It's all intentional. It's a big game. And so I tell black Americans that DEI is the ultimate black face.
Right.
On face value, it purports that it levels the playing field for blacks, through equity. But at the end of the day, it's really about pushing a trans zealot agenda. Barack Obama in 2012 created an executive order to go against Lyndon B. Johnson's 1965 Discrimination Act.
Right.
It was intentional. It gave special interest and special protections for people who were homosexual and or transgender. And so we're in a big mess in the workforce right now. And so as a Christian pastor, we have to address these issues, and that's why I'm leading this campaign.
Absolutely. Pastor John Amachuku, great to see you. We'll do this again very soon when I'm back in New York and you're back in North Carolina.
Sounds
great
good.
to meet in person. Thank you.